Hello, Trenton.
Hello, Connor.
Welcome to Switching Reels.
The energy level that you give the intro to this is not consistent. I just edited the, which one was it?
Hello, Trenton.
There we go. That's more consistent. Thank you.
What did we watch today?
We watched the Steven Spielberg movie.
Nope.
Dang. Psycho.
By Alfred Hitchcock.
Was it by Alfred Hitchcock? I think there was a book that it was not by Alfred Hitchcock.
You said that it was Steven Spielberg, and I was just coming around and making that a little bit less wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, this is an old movie. If you like old movies,
yes,
you should watch it.
And it feels older than it is. This was made in 1960.
Okay.
Color film was fully available. Alfred Hitchcock just wanted to prove that
you didn't need it.
He didn't need it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Do we have any old colored films on this list? Sorry, so far.
Old colored films?
Yeah.
No. I mean, most of the ones that we've had are ones that were in black and white, and then they colorized them later.
Yeah.
And then we just didn't watch the colorized editions because colorization was...
silly.
Yeah, kind of dumb.
We probably have better AI for it now.
I do appreciate certain colorized editions of things if it adds to the feeling of the movie.
Absolutely.
But, like, It's a Wonderful Life. We watched that. It has a colorized version. I can't stand the colorized version. I don't think we should do the
colorized version of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, like it was...
There's other editions for it.
Yeah.
Go see the play. That's colorized.
The movie's in black and white.
Yeah.
And it should be in black and white.
I like that. That's good. All right. What did we feel on this movie?
My feeling on this movie is 10 out of 10.
Really? On both?
Love this film. No, that's my enjoyment level. It's a 9 out of 10 for me on technical.
Okay.
And it loses the point because you can tell that Alfred Hitchcock definitely didn't like certain characters and just kind of rushed through their sections.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, fair enough. Like, Sam and Lillian?
Maybe it's Lillian.
It was
Mollian.
It was something that started with an L.
Okay.
I know that much. He clearly didn't like them very much.
No, not a ton.
And he barely liked the private detective.
Exactly.
like both of their sections were pretty much like, here are the characters, and we get through their stories as fast as possible.
We can.
But like, I think the section all the way from the beginning through when Marion Crane dies and...
That's spoilers!
Oh, yeah.
What side of the wall do you think we're on?
I think we're on the spoiler side of the wall.
Ah, good.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Now that I've spoiled...
We didn't hear either one of mine. This is a heck. I'll do that on the other side. Please like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to figure out if we're doing a tier list. My vote is yes for Miyazaki specifically.
Yeah.
And sorry, Studio Ghibli, to be even more general. But
the Hayao Miyazaki films from Studio Ghibli, like 90% of them are on
the
list. So yeah,
beautiful.
I mean, we've got like The Boy and the Heron and The Wind Rises and Porco Rosso, and I think like that's it. That doesn't make... Oh, I guess Lupin the Third.
I don't know what Lupin the Third is.
That was his first film.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah, nope. So exactly. We are probably going to do one. So if you see a bunch of Ghibli films soon.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, I think if we do a bunch of Ghibli films, we should do it as one video, which is a tier list.
That means we have to wait, how is that going to work?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, then we'll talk about the logistics off screen. Sounds lovely. All right, going back into Psycho.
Yeah. Anyway,
my enjoyment was like an 8.
Okay.
It was an okay movie. Very much not bad.
Yeah.
But I got a little bored sometimes, and then I was a little let down that I predicted it at the end.
I was honestly kind of surprised that you predicted it at the point that you did. Like,
Yeah.
usually your predictions are either like way earlier in the movie,
Yeah.
or
as it's happening.
or like as it's happening. This one
Exactly.
you were like 10 minutes before, and I'm like, that's just a little bit too much before.
Just a little bit too much before. Just barely.
I would say for any normal viewer, this hits you like a freight train.
Yeah.
You would not expect the twist that comes.
Exactly. I'll have to talk to my wife. I want to know
has-
if she knew, if she saw that one coming, because
That's possible. She also, she's another one that
that
like
just will.
she's like, oh, a twist? I know what happens at the beginning of the movie. And you're like,
Exactly.
how?
You're like, what do you mean?
It's infuriating.
We change POVs. You can't know what's happening at the beginning of the movie.
With my wife, it's a different kind of frustration. She does not believe that the filmmakers will answer her questions. And so she's asking me what the answer to her questions are. And I'm like, just watch. Trust them.
We're watching good movies, and therefore you can know they will answer your questions. And if they don't afterwards, then you can go and write an essay about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's lovely. So yeah, and then technical is higher though for me. I would say a 9.5. Like they did everything here lovely.
Yeah. My only point off of it is like, again, sort of the feeling you get with certain characters that they're just like rushing them through the story.
Yeah, I agree. Like we do spend like it was so strangely like
it's almost a pacing
choreographed issue. Yeah, exactly. Like it's I wonder if that's from the book or if it is from Spielberg.
It's possible.
Sorry, Hitchcock.
I find it more likely that it was from Hitchcock, just because of the amount of control that Hitchcock had over his movies. Like basically there are only two directors that I feel this way with, but if he or Kubrick does something and you're like, I'm not sure about that decision, you can almost guarantee that it was a director choice.
Yeah. What did Kubrick do?
We haven't watched any of his films yet, I don't think. We might be introducing you to him with Clockwork Orange, which I hope is not the case, because that is an intense movie and not one that I would ever be like, hey! Oh, one of the greatest directors of all time. Let's drop you into his most harrowing film.
That sounds lovely.
And not harrowing like Schindler's List, but like, I'm not entirely sure whether the director is endorsing this or not if I'm not paying very close attention kind of thing.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
It sounds lovely.
We might actually hit Paths of Glory first, which I think is a wonderful introduction to him. So
cool.
That's a sad movie, though. So we'll continue on your...
Every movie, top 250 movie is sad, except for this one. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised that this one was not sad.
Yeah.
Like it was just a nice suspense thriller.
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't even really horror. Had some jumps, but wasn't anything too crazy.
I actually really appreciate this as horror, but not necessarily for like it's not one of those ones where you watch and you're like, oh, that was so gruesome. Yeah. It's more one that you watch and you're like, it's that building sort of dread.
Yeah.
And like, I think the big difference with suspense is you're like, there's danger around somewhere.
Yeah.
And with this one, you're like, they're going to die.
I know where the danger is.
Like, I am well aware that this person is going to die.
Yes.
And I don't like it and I want it to stop.
Yeah.
That's what good horror does.
Nice.
Whereas what good suspense does is, ooh, will they make it out okay? Which is why I don't find it as interesting. But, you know, I still like good suspense as well.
It doesn't have a body count. It's a bad movie, says Connor.
No. I just find...
the clickbait article I'm going to go and write for this.
No, I just find the idea of knowing the end and having to watch it happen anyway.
Yeah.
I find that far more interesting than being like, oh, this is a yes or no answer that we kind of know the answer to because we're going to continue following these characters.
We know the genre. Yeah, exactly.
I find suspense more predictable than horror.
Yeah, much more.
Which is a strange thing to say, especially having juxtaposed it with
right now.
Like, yeah. But I love this film.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I think
better horror movie than Parasite for sure.
For sure, I would agree that this is definitely a better horror movie than Parasite. Whose decision was it to market that movie as horror?
I want to know. We want to know if it was your decision or you know whose decision it was. Please let us know so we can go and ask them.
Actually, don't let us know in the comments. Go ask them and then post
and
the
then
comment.
Come back.
With
Oh, I'd love that. If we can just have the answer, that would be great.
Because that means we don't have to do work on our end.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Connor. That's a much better idea.
But yeah, this is almost a perfect horror movie,
yeah,
in my
it takes
opinion.
you for a trip as well. You know,
Yeah.
like where you end is nowhere near where you began.
Yeah.
Like nowhere near. Just like the plot was so simple. Everything
Yeah.
was so easy. You know, this woman stole a bunch of money and she was taking it someplace.
Yeah.
And then she made a wrong turn and she died. Oh, okay. I'm in my summary.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So, yeah. And then after she died, that's half of the movie. Only half of the movie. Because we go back to her boyfriend and her sister who are like, oh no, we can't find her. She stole all this money. And then there's also a private investigator who's like, "Ooh, I think I know where she is," and then he finds where she might be, and then also gets stabbed. And that's the sound that you have all the time.
It's the second time.
That's the second time you hear it. Happens so many times. I think only 3, but it happens so many times. And then they're like, "Oh no, there's 2 guys gone. How could that happen?" At the same place. I don't know how that could happen. So they go look in to see how it could happen. They go there. They're married. Then
they're not married.
They're not married. And they scout out the place. And then they find the very dead mother. But she lives on in the heart and mind of her son, who tries to stab them more. And then we have a weirdly long, like 10-minute explanation of why this man is psychotic, which actually I didn't mind.
Yeah.
It's a weird ending to the movie. And then you zoom in on the man's face that was stabbing people, Master Bates. And here, I liked the voiceover. Anyway, and that's my summary.
All right. I've got a much shorter summary.
Yeah, good.
Marion Crane steals $40,000 from her employer. She goes on a trip to see her boyfriend so that they can get married with $40,000. She gets tired and stops at a motel. At the motel, she is murdered. Then, a whole bunch of people start looking for her, including a private investigator for the guy she stole $40,000 from, her boyfriend, and her sister. One by one, they decide, I'm going to go looking for her. And the first one dies and the other 2 don't. And they find out what's going on with Norman Bates dressing up like his mom to keep her alive and murdering everybody that comes in.
Anyone that turns him on.
Anyone that turns him on. Or that he thinks is going to find out that he got turned on.
Can't let them know. If they know, you stab them. And not in a nice way.
I'll remind you, this is going on the internet.
I mark every one of these explicit.
Oh.
I marked a Spirited Away explicit, even though I'm pretty sure we didn't curse.
Oh, that's fine.
I mark all of these as not safe for kids. Did not make this as with kids as the intended audience.
In fairness, any time that we're having a conversation, there's a good chance that just something will be said that is not appropriate for children.
Yes.
So if you're a child, stop listening now.
Yeah, why are you here?
Why are you even... Why have you gotten this far?
Away.
We'll talk to you later.
We'll talk to you later.
And not during the Pixar episodes. Those will very likely be as explicit as this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is nearly a perfect film.
Yeah. It's really good, actually. Like, as we're talking about it, I'm like losing some of my animosity. So it's gonna.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go and rise up to a 9 by the end of this episode on enjoyment, and I'll be at a solid 9 on both.
Yeah. I think another thing that's important to understand about this film, just from a history standpoint, is like this was super edgy for its time.
It feels edgy. Even
Like,
now, it still feels edgy.
in
A
some
little
ways,
bit,
yeah.
You know, like
But like
not like 7 edgy.
There's no nudity exactly.
Not exactly.
Which was important for the censor boards at the time.
Yep.
The violence is
Off screen.
Yeah-ish.
Like, it's bad. It's like show violence, but worse.
Yeah.
And then there's blood and they're dead.
Another thing that I found really interesting is, I can't remember where I heard this, but there was somebody talking about the first time that they saw this in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And the awkward laughs when she flushes the toilet, because it was just not socially acceptable for you to acknowledge the fact that, you know, you flush the toilet. And
Yeah.
that's a real part of life.
Oh, that's so funny.
And the other thing that was really interesting and a little bit more upsetting is he was talking about the ladies behind him when the scene of Norman Bates cleaning up Marion Crane's body. And at this point, you still believe that it's the mother that's done it and her son is just covering up for her crime.
Exactly.
And the ladies behind him going, "Oh, what a good boy." And it's like, oh my gosh, that is a dysfunctional relationship.
Oh no. Who's the him in that sentence?
Norman Bates.
No, but who's the him watching the movie?
I don't remember who it was.
Gotcha. Okay, cool, I missed that part.
It might have been in one of the commentaries that I
Nice.
watched on this,
Yeah.
or it was somebody. I don't remember
No,
exactly who this
totally.
was, but I do remember that
That's
particular story.
amazing. Oh my goodness.
Like,
I started getting a little suspicious at the beginning because we didn't see her face.
mm-hmm.
And like that was a pretty currently it's a dead giveaway that they're very much hiding something. And so your brain should start working out what they're hiding.
I think that can be glossed over some by some of the trappings of horror.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you've seen a lot of horror movies, they do a
interesting.
really, really good job of like never showing the killer's face or never showing the monster fully.
Nice.
And so you get like hints.
If I was more immersed into the horror culture, it wouldn't hit me as hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was probably one of the movies that sort of codified that.
Yeah.
But like, there's a reason that, you know, like a lot of slasher villains wear masks and that kind of thing, because not seeing the person's face is
very much a part of it.
Right, yeah.
Like it's the separation of person from monster is one of the cooler things in horror and this kind of like horror suspense. It's a really, really like, and then at the end have reality crash back into you and be like, oh, this is a person. And as it is for most horror movies, not all of them, but it's just very cool.
I mean, a lot of them, it is a person, but we still don't show you their face because the symbol is more unnerving than the individual.
Every time I hear the word symbol, I want to go watch V for Vendetta.
That was somebody who wore a mask too.
Exactly. For a different reason.
But like, I'm not an expert on the horror genre. I've got friends that would probably be better suited for this conversation. But I mean, the fact that we don't ever really see Michael Myers' face from the Halloween movies. We don't ever really see the face of Jason from Friday the 13th. we don't see the face of... I move very quickly to monster movies.
Nice.
So I don't know, maybe it doesn't work the same. But like I think a lot of things, like the sort of quintessential villains, are either on the side of like Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's like, it's kind of a person, but he's horribly disfigured.
Yes.
And honestly is playing more into the monster side of things than the slasher side of things.
Completely.
Or it's, this is someone in a mask and we don't show you their face unless that's supposed to be the reveal at the end. Like
exactly.
in Scream or in this, or, you know, something like that.
Completely agree.
And so I think from that perspective, you don't really expect it to be the guy who just is kind of awkward and like very slightly sinister. Like that feels like too easy an answer.
It does.
For so long in the film.
Yeah. And I really like how they hinted at the like, then who did we bury?
Right, yeah.
Like the mom still is alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And the scene that really clinched it for, oh, the mom is dead, was when he was arguing with his mom about going to the fruit cellar.
Yeah.
And we don't see the conversation because we see everyone else's conversation.
That did the opposite for me the first time I watched it.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, okay, those voices are way too different. And like, I'm watching him carry her downstairs. Like, those two things together made me go, there's no way. But you definitely saw through that.
I got it. But he also is a taxidermist. And they spend like 15 minutes talking about he's a taxidermist.
That's true.
And so I'm like, oh, if he's a taxidermist.
But a lot of what also makes the taxidermy thing work for the film does not require that he taxidermied his mom.
Oh, for sure.
Like the fact that he taxidermies birds because he can't stand the idea of taxidermying beasts. And
plays into the like, oh, look at this cute, like, nervous guy.
Well, and it plays into that. It also plays into the fact that her name is Marion Crane. And you're like, oh, so she's good. She's a bird.
I heard when she said her last name was Crane, I was like,
like you kind of see that, and you're like, oh, so he's treating her after she's dead. Like, and that for me was enough to be like, okay, I don't need to look into this any further. Like, that's just a brilliant connection.
So good.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says halfway through the movie.
The beginning of our time.
I feel
with
like
Norman.
it is though. Like the halfway point of this movie feels like the first third, and not like
this is a pretty short movie.
Yeah, it's not long.
Yeah, I think it's like 86 minutes.
Just the amount of like content though that they fit into the last half is a bunch.
Yeah,
just so much.
And the amount they fit into the first half is a bunch too. Like
but
it's more of a like single build.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that I really love is the whole subplot with the cop. Everybody forgets about that subplot,
right?
But it does such a great job of establishing tension for her.
It does.
So early in the film.
I completely
agree.
Like,
she leaves, and like at first you're like, oh, it's just a little bit like uncomfortable because she stole a whole bunch of money from her boss, and her boss saw her leaving town and all that kind of stuff. But the cop is like, oh no, this lady's in trouble. And then he follows her. Yeah.
I really liked the voiceovers in her head and then in Bates's head at the end.
Yeah. The voiceovers in this were very, very well used.
I think they were really well used.
This is, looking back at my time writing screenplays and stuff, like, I was never really sure what to do with voiceovers because I was told like, oh, voiceovers are a crutch, but also like a lot of films that I really love use voiceovers, and I was like, I don't really know how to use this stylistically. this movie, if I could have gone back in time and been like, look at the way this movie does voiceovers, I would have been writing much better screenplays at a much earlier age.
No, completely.
Like, when I first saw this, I was probably 16, 17, something like that.
Nice.
And I did not pick up on that. I picked up on certain things that make this film brilliant, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Not by a long shot. And I really wish that I would have picked up on the voiceovers.
The voiceovers were really good.
Yeah.
Like her going through her thoughts and like playing through. It was just.
Well, they add to the atmosphere of the film.
Yeah, they do.
Her thoughts when she's leaving are all adding to sort of this tension that's building inside of her as she's like trying to deal with the issues that she has going on morally inside. And then the voiceovers at the end are supposed to instill the audience with dread.
Yeah.
Because like it seems so almost pleasant and normal.
Exactly.
When that feeling is so out of place with this guy that you've just seen murder at least 2 people and you know he's murdered
4.
more.
And you know 6.
Like, yeah, it's a very, very interesting way to use voiceover. Yeah. And
super cool.
I wish I would have picked that up from an earlier age.
Completely.
I also wanted to talk about the acting in this.
Yeah.
Especially for the era that this came out in.
I was like, this is top
Great
notch.
acting was not super common.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy a lot of films from this era. I don't enjoy them for their acting.
Exactly.
The transatlantic accent does a really good job of making me overlook a lot of pretty horrible acting flaws.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a reason that during this era, Jimmy Stewart was the actor. It's because he was the only one that could show any sort of emotion, despite the fact that he only had 4 of them.
He could do it well, though.
Yeah, he could
Gotta
do those
stick
4.
With what you know.
Yeah, he could do those 4 incredibly well. But yeah, the acting in this from beginning to end, even for the characters that, again, Alfred Hitchcock clearly just kind of wanted to shunt through. Like, even those actors were solid at the very least. I think Sam is probably the weakest actor of them all.
I think so too.
And he's not that bad.
No, he's really not. Like, and who they got for Norman was just great. He was awesome.
Interesting fact about Anthony Perkins.
Okay.
He was he was Norman Bates in this. He was like the teen heartthrob when he made this film.
That makes complete sense.
And he made this film and was basically told, this will shoot your career. And he's like, okay.
Sounds great. I don't know, like, and obviously the culture is different then. Make that movie now, you still are the teen heartthrob.
Right, yeah. You have the Robert Pattinson thing going on now.
Exactly.
Like, actually, weirdly, while I was watching this, I was like, I kind of see some parallels between Robert Pattinson and Anthony Perkins. And like the idea that, yeah, he was just this like teen heartthrob sort of thing. And then he started taking roles that were really dark and just completely shed that sort of persona.
That's so good. And
proved that he was an incredible actor, despite the fact that he was in some not incredible films early in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did so well. They also just
long story short, I love Robert Pattinson now. I didn't love him a few years ago.
I like Robert Pattinson. But I also like Twilight. So
that's fair.
He didn't. But that's okay.
No, he didn't. He really didn't.
He really didn't.
I've never actually seen the Twilight movies, but I have seen some of the behind the scenes footage of the Twilight movies, and the interviews with Robert Pattinson are gorgeous.
It was so good.
He was so mean.
Yes. I liked their, like, because in retrospect, they did a lot of really cool foreshadowing about like, oh, this guy is unstable. But also, I really liked the line of like, mother, like she couldn't hurt, like she's as harmless as one of these stuffed birds.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, poor guy, a little bit, you know, like yeah, you killed her,
Yeah.
and then you preserved her body, but like, poor guy.
I mean, you didn't pick this up until a little bit later, but like I got to hear all of the like, oh, he's so sweet kind of things, and it's like, Trenton, you don't know what you're in for. And I kind of love that.
I'm so glad. I do love the fact that going through these, there are so many firsts for me, because it just makes it so fun.
Well, and I went through this, and like a lot of these movies I've been spoiled a little bit on, and I did everything that I could to forget the spoilers that I knew. This was one. Usual Suspects was one. I'm sure there are others that are just not coming to mind. But like those ones, I kind of knew what was going to happen, and I was able to kind of gaslight myself into not knowing, so that I could enjoy the film. But going into some of these films with you and knowing like, okay, you haven't just sat and watched hours of like YouTube analysis videos on how to do these different things, and they use this as examples and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just really cool to be able to watch you like just be blindsided by something, or more often than not figure it out 10 minutes before. So I still get 90% of the reaction, but I don't get the shock that I'm hoping for.
I can't wait for like the true shock. Like that's hard to hit for me, and I'm looking, it's gonna be great.
I'm sure there will be a few.
Yeah.
Memento I expect to be one. For no other reason than that movie is impossible to figure out while you're watching it.
Nice.
And it's part of the reason that it's my favorite movie of all time.
So
I think I've told you about the structure of that one.
I think so.
Each scene takes place after the next scene.
What?
It's kind of hard to explain exactly,
cool.
But the first color scene takes place at the end of the movie.
Oh.
And then the next color scene is the scene before that one.
Nice.
And so on and so forth, because you're following a guy with short-term memory loss. And so, like, every time you start a scene, you're like, okay, how did he get here? I've kind of just been thrown into the deep end of the pool, and I got to figure out what's going on.
Oh, that's cool.
Just like he is.
That's so cool.
The difference is you can remember what happens next, whereas he doesn't know.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Also, there's black and white scenes that kind of go backwards, but it doesn't really get into it the same way. It's a little weird. But it's a great film.
I'm stoked.
And I'm very excited for that one, because I do not believe that you'll be able to predict it at all.
I'm so excited for that. I'm also looking forward to Requiem for a Dream, but only because I like the song.
Requiem for a Dream is a roller coaster, and it is an experience of a film. I don't think it's a great story, but it is a great movie, and it will make you feel things you didn't want to feel.
Nice. Stoked.
All right. What else do we have to talk about here? I mean, we kind of touched on themes, but themes aren't really super important to this.
They're not exceptionally.
There's a lot of motifs in this film, but not a whole lot of themes.
Yeah, like doors. There's a lot of doors in this. At least 12.
I don't...
All of them vacant.
I don't know that counts as a motif or a theme.
The cars have doors. There's that really big door to the house.
Yeah. There's doors in every movie. Star Wars has doors.
I want to find a movie without doors now. There's that one submarine one. They're just in the submarine.
There'll still be doors in a submarine.
Do they have to open them? Yeah, you normally actually seal them so that if one part gets breached, it doesn't flood the entire thing.
Right, yeah.
Dang.
I'm sure that there are some Westerns or survival type movies.
Doors. Very few.
My first thought was There's a movie called... I can't remember. It was a Robert Redford movie. It came out in like 2015, 2016. And it was all about him just surviving on a boat.
Ooh.
But there was one door.
Yeah.
There was a door to his cabin.
Gotta work on that.
Basically no dialogue, but there was a door.
If you guys know of any movies that don't have doors, let me know.
Does
cave movies.
Does Tarzan have any doors?
I think that they have a house. I think there's a house.
Oh.
Like a tree house.
Like in the Swiss Family Robinson.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Land Before Time.
Land Before Time has no doors. Completely agree. There we go. We found, and therefore dinosaur as well.
Yeah. I try to forget that one.
I love dinosaur.
I loved it when I was a kid. I've tried to go back and watch it, and it was one of those moments where I was like...
proof of no nostalgia. Dang it.
Right. That was one of those moments where I was like, I love this movie. And then I got 5 minutes in, I'm like, what was wrong with me? Why was I a child?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Why could I not just be an adult the whole time?
Immediately. I have so much regret.
If you have regret for being a child, hit the like button.
Please. Also share with other people that might have regret for being a child.
Yeah. I don't know. What else do we got here?
Threw out the script again, so I...
Yeah. Our next movie is Gladiator.
Ooh. Is he, though? Is he Gladiator?
Have you ever seen Gladiator, Trenton?
I have not. I have not seen Gladiator. I think I may have seen pieces of Gladiator, but not all of Gladiator.
Stop saying it like that.
Apparently you're not.
I have seen it. I quite enjoy that movie.
Good.
I'm excited to watch it next time on Switching Reels. Let's end this now.
How do we end it?